everyone in this new video of Delta Charlie Delta. Today we are again on a PA28 Foxtrot Golf Tango Echo Zulu. As last time I am not alone, I am with an instructor. What we will do today is to go to a different airport, Haguenau, that has a much shorter runway than Strasbourg, to practice some traffic circuit and some landings. In the previous flight, as you can remember from the last videos, I had some problem, but I did another flight during which my landings are much improved. So now I am going to Haguenau, that as I said has a very short runway, and in this way I can still continue to improve my skills with this aircraft. Now let's listen to the ATC and tell me what you understand.
This is Strasburgo information channel recorded at 0635 ATC. Expect ILS approach, runway news 23, transition level 80. Wind 240 degrees, 1 premise. Ceiling and visibility okay. Temperature +19 degrees, dew point +11 degrees. Quebec November Hotel 1018. Inform Strasbourg first contact that you have received information Charlie. Bonjour, c'est Strasbourg Information Charlie, enregistre à 6h35 ETC. Type d'approche prévu ILS, piste en service 23. Niveau de transition 8-0. Vent 240 degrés, 13 nœuds. Cavité. Température plus 19 degrés, point de revue plus 11 degrés. QNH 1018, unité 0, unité 8. Informez Strasbourg au premier contact que vous avez reçu l'information Charlie.
Okay, so obviously we were listening to the ATC, so to the automatic meteorological information of Strasbourg Airport. So normally this is the first thing that you do when you start flying, so you already know the weather conditions. Now we will need to contact the ground to have the startup approval.
Strasburgo Ground, good morning, Foxtrot Golf Tango Echo Zulu.
Golf Tango, bonjour, c'est de full call sign.
Foxtrot Golf Tango Echo Zulu.
Fox Golf Tango Echo Zulu, pass your message.
Fox Tango Echo Zulu, it's a PA28 with 2 persons on board, parking Bravo. Request startup for a flight to Haguenau, exit via November, 2,500 feet.
Fox Echo Zulu, that's copied, startup is approved, squawk 6102, report for taxi.
6102, report ready for taxi, Fox Echo Zulu.
So, as you may remember from the last video, in Strasbourg they ask the startup request also for welfare flight. So I have been authorized to start up, so I'm now doing all the pre-startup checklist, and then we will go. So today, Haguenau, much shortest runway, is between 600 to 800 feet, depending to 600 to 800 meters, depending on which runway you choose. And it's an uncontrolled airport, so this is very important. While in Strasbourg we have a control tower that will tell us what is the runway use, will tell us if there are other aircraft, and will help us to be separated from other aircraft. In Haguenau we are alone, so we will need to communicate and to integrate in the circuit.
Strasburgo Ground, Fox Echo Zulu, ready for taxi.
Fox Echo Zulu, taxi holding point runway 23.
Holding point runway 23, Fox Echo Zulu.
So, as you have heard, we have been cleared for taxi. So we do the pre-taxi briefing and then we go. As you may notice in this video, there is a new visual from under the wing, and I managed also to add some, let's call them flight instruments. Of course they are GPS based instruments, so they are not the real value that I am reading on my instruments, because what I'm reading in the instruments of course are values in respect to the air. For example, the speed in the aircraft is the speed that I read is the speed relative to the air. It's what is called indicated airspeed. while the speed that you see here on the left is a ground speed, so in respect to the ground. On the right there is the altitude. In the altimeter, the altitude is the height from a barometric reference, the QNH, that every time is repeated by the controller, while here it's the exact altitude from the ground.
Strasburgo Ground, Fox Golf Tango Echo Zulu, holding point Echo, runway 23, ready for departure.
Fox Echo Zulu, good day again, line up runway 23 and wait.
Line up and wait, runway 23, Fox Tango Echo Zulu.
So, we have been cleared just to line up on the runway, but not for the takeoff. So this means that we still need the clearance.
Fox Echo Zulu, cleared for takeoff, runway 23, wind 24 degrees, 12 knots.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 23, Fox Tango Echo Zulu.
So, now we have been cleared alt for takeoff, so we can line up and start our flight. So, I was saying, the flight instruments are that you see on the screen are a bit different from the one that I have in the real aircraft. Especially, for example, the compass you will see it's very late, so it's not so precise. But yeah, it's still useful, I think. And now let's go. So we are accelerating. As you can see, we are taking off from runway 23. Here, for example, you can see that the speed was just 40 knots when the wheel came off the ground, but obviously I didn't take off at 40 knots. The speed was 60 knots, but we had 12 knots of wind in front of us, so obviously again the speed that you read in altimeter is the speed in respect to the air. So here again during the climb you see it's just 70 knots, but in real life I am climbing in this moment at 80 knots until 800 feet and then 90 knots after. So yeah, you can see that I am accelerating to 90 knots, that is the normal climb speed on the PA28. So we will climb to 2,500 feet and then we will arrive in Haguenau. We will exit the Strasburgo CTR via the point November, and then we will arrive in directly in Haguenau. It's really near. So how to do the integration in the circuit in Haguenau? As I said before, Haguenau is not controlled. This means that I need first to understand what runway is in use. How you decide? You decide looking at the windsock. So you always land with the wind in the face. In this way, your speed in respect to the ground is the lowest speed possible. So we will pass at 2,000 feet over the runway. We will look at the windsock, and depending on the position of the windsock, we will decide which runway is in use. Notice that the circuit altitude in Haguenau is 1,500 feet, but we will pass at 2,000 feet. Why? Because in this way, if there are other traffics that are in the circuit, we will not bother them. Obviously, passing at 1,500 feet will be not so safe. So of course it's better to pass higher so that you don't bother other traffic in the circuit. And then of course it's very important always to make the call at the air, so to tell the other pilots that you are there and what you are doing. So now we are exiting the Strasburgo CTR and we need to leave the frequency, but we need the clearance.
Strasburgo Fox Tango Echo Zulu, 2,500 feet over November for leaving the frequency.
Fox Echo Zulu, confirm power on the frequency, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we have been cleared to leave the frequency. Now we will contact Haguenau. We will tell them who we are, where we are going, and which are our intentions.
Haguenau Fox Golf Tango Echo Zulu, bonjour. Haguenau, Fox, Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, c'est un PA28 avec des personnes en bord, de Strasburgo Enzyme à vous pour de toucher. Nous sommes à sud-ouest de l'installation, 2500 pieds, 2 minutes de la verticale.
So, as you can see, the structure of the message is always the same. You start from who you are, you tell them where are you going, and where you are, and so on. So you give all the information needed to other people to understand where you are.
Haguenau, Fox, Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, un menu de la verticale de l'installation.
So, now you can see Haguenau, it's just in front of us. So we will pass again over the airport, and then we will decide the runway. Then, after, we will need to do the integration, obviously, in the circuit. How you do this? Well, it depends from which runway is in use. For example, in this case, you will see that the runway in use will be runway 21. So runway 21 is the runway in the opposite direction from the direction from where we are arriving. So what we will do is to pass over the runway, arrive at the end of the runway, then turn right, go back, and then do the integration in the circuit. The circuit, as you can see in Haguenau, it's always east to the runway. The circuit will be left from runway 21. Left circuit means that you do all your turns by left. While for runway 03, the circuit is right, so you do all the turns to your right. As you can see in Haguenau, there are also these two blue circles that are. This means that there are two cities that we cannot fly over. So obviously this is something that we need to consider when we do the circuit. We need to pay attention not to fly over these two small villages.
Haguenau, Fox, Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, intégration dans le circuit main gauche, piste 21.
So I just communicated again to any other pilot that can be near the runway that we choose runway 21 and that we are performing the integration to the left downwind. So again, in the circuit you have a downwind, that is the part of the circuit parallel to the runway. Then you have the base leg that is perpendicular to the runway, and then you have the final. The final is the last part of the circuit when you are in the same direction of the runway and you are going down to land. So for the moment, as you can see, we are still at 2,000 feet. There have been some oscillations, so you have seen that at a certain point the altitude went a bit down and then up again. I can assure you that was not me not flying well, but it's just the GPS that, as you can see, is doing strange stuff. So the speed is quite correct in this moment, because obviously you start your approach not at the normal speed, but at a lower speed. In this case, it's 80 knots. 80 knots is your circuit speed, so the speed that we will keep for all the time during the circuit. So then, for the landing, we will reduce again the speed to 70 knots. In this moment, now I started my descent. Now I am descending to the circuit altitude that, as I said before, was 1,500 feet.
Haguenau, Fox Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, vent arrière, main gauche, piste 21.
So now I just reported that I am on the left downwind for runway 21. So as you can see, from now on all my turn will be on my left. Left turn are the standard turn because obviously are from the side of the pilot, and so you have a better view of the outer traffic. So when you can, you normally always turn left. But for example, in this case, it's left for 21, but it's right for 02. So now we are at 1,500 feet in the circuit, so we will start to prepare the aircraft for the landing. This means doing the approach checklist. Approach checklist in this case is flap, so we will put the first flap, so flap 1. In this way we can reduce the speed of the aircraft and be more safe. Flaps are used when you need to fly slower and you want more protection from stall. And then in this case, given that this aircraft is a low wing aircraft, checklists are also fuel pump on. So it's the pump sucking the fuel from the wing. So you normally have a mechanical pump that is driven by the engine, but in this moment you put also the electrical pump so that if there is a failure of the mechanical pump, the engine will not stop in a very, very bad moment. This will be the worst moment probably to have an engine failure. And then obviously landing light on. And now we start the base leg of our circuit and we start the descent.
Haguenau, Fox Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, basse, main gauche, piste 21.
So you normally keep the circuit altitude for all the downwind, and then you start your descent when you turn in the base leg. Obviously, this depends a bit on the aircraft and on your flying and how you have been trained. So in my case, I normally do like this. I start to descend during the base turn. But for example, in this case, we have a lot of wind, and so for example, the wind is changing a bit the performance of the airplane. So in particular, obviously, if you have wind, you have to correct your heading and your power in order not to arrive too low or too high. For example, as you can see now that we are turning in final, we are a bit low.
Haguenau, Fox Golf Tango, Echo Zulu, final, piste 21.
So, as I was telling you, we are just a bit low, so I will need to add a bit of power in order to not descend so fast as before, until I reach the optimum glide path. When I am on the good glide, I can again reduce the power, so to descend faster at my normal descent rate. This runway, as I said before, is quite shorter, so it will be very important to be precise. So to try to land exactly in the good spot. Now the speed has been reduced to 70 knots. That is our approach speed today. Especially when you have wind, you normally try to land with a bit higher indicated airspeed, because in this way you can correct in case the wind changes direction and the speed drops immediately. But now let's see this landing. Okay, so the landing was not bad at all, was quite a good landing, but I had two small problems. The first one was that I was not perfectly on the center line, and the second one was that I floated a bit on the runway, and so I touched not exactly in the perfect spot, but a bit after. So I used a bit too much runway. So obviously in this case was still good, but obviously for being perfect you need to touch exactly in the good spot, so that you really have a lot of room still to spare for your safety, of course. Probably you have noticed that after takeoff I turned a bit to the right in order not to pass over the small village in front of us. Normally, of course, you don't want to make noise for the people, so you avoid to pass over the villages. But now I will leave you alone for this last circuit and then an announcement. Okay guys, so also this flight is finished, and as you can see this is a full stop landing. Why full stop landing? Because in the next flight we will do a bit of EFR from Haguenau to Strasburgo again. Put a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you on the next video. Bye bye! Bye.